In today's show, we talk about the future of the Trailblazers television broadcast. Is it going to be easier to watch this team next year? Finally? Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're going to talk about the future of the Trailblazers television broadcast. That's right. It might get easier to watch this team on TV. It's been a long time since it's been genuinely easy to watch them on television, and it's only gotten significantly harder in the last, let's call it, 10 calendar months. But now there is some movement that it could be simpler for you. All you might need is an antenna or just access to the cable package you already have. However you get it, if you get local cable channels, you might be able to watch Blazer games. That's the direction it's headed. I think the question of always sort of when that would be the case is it has always been sort of the bigger question. When will they get there? And now all of a sudden, for the first time, it feels soon. So what I want to do in today's show is going to be a lot about the local TV deal, because I think it's the biggest news facing the team. In addition, I want to talk about the death of the super team. Long live the super team, because I think there is some sort of the results of this first round of the playoffs have made people sort of rethink roster building. And I don't think super teams are dead, but I think the challenge is louder than ever for teams that are top heavy, or at least steeper. Our challenge is loud. We'll talk about what challenges are, what verbs impact them in the third segment. Let's talk TV first. So Root Sports, the regional sports television network that carries the Portland Trailblazers, like many other regional sports television networks around the country, is struggling. This is the sort of the RSN thing. The regional sports network is not unique to Portland or unique to the Trailblazers or unique to Root Sports. It is a thing that has sort of threatened to cripple Major League Baseball for a little while. It is a challenge across all of sports, is that it costs a bunch of fees to carry regional sports networks. People are cutting cords, and the sort of dynamics of, on both sides, who pays for it. Like, will YouTube TV and Hulu shell out the big money? And if they do, will they pass it on to the consumer? And will the consumer shell out big money to watch regional sports networks? And for the most part, increasingly, the answer is not really. Not unique to the Blazers, but Root Sports has been a particularly poor partner for the Trailblazers. They chose this path, and this path ended up rocky. Right before the start of this season, some of this stuff, if you're a longtime listener, I've said in the past, but it's been months. It's been eight months. So I'm gonna kind of walk us back to where we are before we talk about where the Blazers are headed. Right before the season started, the Blazers, Root Sports was bumped up. It's only carried on among cable providers here on Comcast, and Comcast bumped it up to a higher payment tier that would cost customers up to $35 more per month. And I've heard tell of people calling Comcast and waiting on the phone and getting a discount or an extended 6-month discount or only $5 increase or whatever it is, right? But like, if you didn't have time to fight it or didn't know about being able to fight it with the right customer service representative, it was gonna be more expensive. I think that's the bottom line. For a product that was going to get worse after Damian Lillard left and the Blazers went young was going to be more expensive to watch. And the Blazers, that combination of them being bad this year and it having a more expensive television product they tried to view led to a massive ratings drop. Depending on who's telling you, over losing about half their television audience. A huge, like painful, feel it type of ratings drop. this leads to an inevitable change, right? If Root Sports is only available to it's in more homes because it's on cable, but it is more expensive, and then all of a sudden, and it isn't as it's widely distributed, but on a narrower channel, and that narrower channel gets it gets more expensive. You're going to get the ratings drop. You're going to get the ratings drop because the team's bad, and then if you get these confluence of things, it's inevitable that the Blazers and Root Sports are going to end their relationship. The thing is, they have a contract that runs through next season. But the Blazers are feeling it, right? You not watching on TV means that they can't sell ads to as many eyeballs. They can't sell to their, you can't sell local advertising to a local business if it's like, yeah, well, sure, half as many people are watching as last year, but you should re-up and pay us more money for your ads, Wilsonville Toyota, or whoever it might be. So the Blazers start to pivot, and they obviously know, we talked about this on this particular show, that like this was the inevitable path, that at some point they were going to divorce Root Sports. And when they did divorce Root Sports, they were probably going to go to an over-the-air solution. Now, this over-the-air solution has happened in Phoenix, where the Suns have their broadcast just straight up on local TV. They also have a digital subscription option, but they just have it on local TV, on an over-the-air local cable network. Utah and Salt Lake City, they have the same thing, an over-the-air cable network, or if you're outside of the sort of that cable provider's range, they have streaming option as well. And the Jazz in particular, although they're not a very good team, they saw their ratings numbers go up. More access means more eyeballs. The solution, this was happening already across NBA markets in the fall, right? And so it felt like the Blazers were eventually going to get there, but like I said, this change felt inevitable, and the Blazers would end up likely in a similar situation. But they were stuck in this contract with Root, and at the time, you don't buy out 2 years of the deal. It wasn't the time to act. Like, it was bad news in the fall, right? And it kind of sprang upon the Blazers right as the season started, and they didn't have time to act. But like, they're just stuck because they chose this path with Root Sports, and they're stuck in this path. But you knew that this breakup was coming at some point. And according to Danny Morang, who reported this a couple weeks ago, that the Blazers had begun exploring their options for another broadcast avenue that wasn't Root Sports next year, and that would include likely an over-the-air, likely a cable option. Morang's reporting didn't say, hey, this is exactly, lay it out, here's exactly what's going to happen, but like, one of the very clear paths that we are considering is this over-the-air option, right? This is one of the directions that we think could potentially reasonably be beneficial for us, and those conversations, according to Morang, were happening in-house with the Blazers, and that those decisions were going to be made as soon as next season for some portion of the Blazers broadcast to be shown to you in a way that wasn't Root Sports. They had started the ball rolling. But here's the thing about momentum. You can build your own, but there is nothing like the pressure from something external. Say the ball starts rolling downhill. Well, the kid who saw your ball rolling downhill, once he kicks it, that thing is really humming, and then it's gone, baby. Gone, baby, gone. And the Blazers' neighbors, the Kraken, the Seattle Kraken of the NHL, who are also carried on Root Sports, they kept this ball rolling. They got that momentum to really start to carry. So what had been a conversation at least a couple weeks ago seems now like a dang near certainty. And certainly the Blazers and Kraken are probably doing this as well. The Kraken have just come publicly with it beforehand, to the point where I don't think the Blazers can turn back. I think this thing's rolling downhill, and what was reported by Danny Morang a couple weeks ago now seems like an inevitability. And the Oregonian has done some reporting of their own. So let's talk about the Kraken and some other local reporting and what it's going to be like to watch Blazer games, how it might look in the second segment. Let's do that. Join me there. First, let me tell you about Nissan. I got a whole new lineup of SUVs that you're going to love. You're going to love, because if you're the driver that likes to push things a little further, Or if you ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner, well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take that adventure to the next level. Like the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It's perfect for city drives. It's perfect for your great escapes. It's got class exclusive Google built right into your always updating assistant that you can call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of getting into your car and having to connect your phone. Instead, you got Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play, all built right into a 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. It's the 2024 Nissan Rogue, the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Say you got a bigger gang, you got a bigger crew, and you still want to roll in style. Well, the 2024 Nissan Armada will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. Tow bigger and explore further in that 2024 Nissan Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Armada, or the Nissan Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Today's show is also brought to you by the mobile game you're going to love. It's Monopoly Go. If you love traditional Monopoly, you're going to get a real kick out of Monopoly Go because not only does it feed your competitive side, but it's also got a new cooperative path that might really scratch that itch. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much more to get. You can get cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. You can get hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. They got a ton of new options, including their own unique mini games like digging for treasures or robot Pacchino machine. There's also new timed events that help you win big, like massive multiplayers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover with Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now for free at the Google Play Store or on the App Store. Game on. All right. Let's talk more Root Sports. This is going to impact you at home. Some folks just straight up got priced out of being able to watch the games. Some folks decided that, okay, the other, streaming options that are not particularly useful also got more expensive in January of this season, and the Blazers aren't very good. And so even if you could afford it, it's like, why go back? Why go back? I want the solution to be better, and who cares? And the Blazers felt your sort of apathy, so they started changing things. They started having this conversation and finding directions that was going to end up outside of Root Sports. Shout out to the guy who used to stand behind the Blazers post-game show with the sign that said Toot Sports. A real clever burn. You'll love to see it. Take them down, brother. In any case, Toot Sports had some problems not only with sort of your interest as Blazer fans, but our neighbors to the north, the Kraken and the NHL, decided that they are pulling their games off of Root Sports, and they are going to two options. They're going to stream on local stations, over-the-air stations. These are Tegna-owned networks, and like full disclosure, Tegna is also it owns the Locked On brand. So not that like where the Kraken games are streams are is going to influence the remaining sentences I say to you on the show, but just like for full disclosure. Local networks, right? In Portland, that would be your NBC, your local NBC affiliate, KGW. So, and you'll be able to watch Kraken games right there. 70 of their regular season games will be available to you locally, and the games that aren't, there's going to be and folks outside of the immediate network and outside of the over the air network. So in Seattle or in Washington and Idaho and Oregon, you'll be able to watch over the air. But if you're outside of that, you'll be able to subscribe to Amazon Prime, and you'll have some Prime Video options in order to catch your Kraken games. The Root carried Kraken games, they carried Blazer games, and they carried Mariner games. They're majority owned, I believe, or 50% owned, something like that. Root is by the Mariners, so I don't think they're going anywhere. But like, when one of your three sort of main streams redirects, and they're like, we're out of here, and the Kraken, probably has to buy back their rights to those games, and then send them to you for free. Otherwise, like, that starts this ball rolling. Like I said, this seems like an inevitable solution at some point, that the Blazers would dump Root Sports and they would come with a direct over-the-air solution. It just felt like it was 2 years away, because the Blazers were under contract for all of this season that just finished and all of next season. And was like, well, at what point do they pay to get out of this mess? Well, if another team is paying to get out of this mess, doesn't it feel like the Blazers have to? Just for optics reasons, if you live in Portland, Oregon, and it is easier to watch the Kraken on KGW than it is to watch the Blazers, that's just not good optics. That's bad. That's bad for the brand, right? This puts pressure on the Blazers. Whether they needed this pressure or not is a whole nother conversation. The reporting that they were exploring these options was a couple weeks ago, and the Kraken news happened last Friday. You were listening to, or last Thursday, I believe, Thursday or Friday, and you're listening to Monday, April 29th show. I appreciate your patronage, appreciate you listening to this Blazer program in April. The Kraken news really starts to kind of get things. It kind of puts the Blazers in a spot where they got to make a choice. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. I'm going to use a euphemism here, but they were someone who I will describe as familiar with the Blazers thinking. This is someone who we had a conversation and they didn't say you can share this on the podcast. So I'm going to keep them extremely anonymous. Appreciate it if you're listening. But this person familiar with the Blazers thinking offered this sort of guess. And this was 2 weeks ago, roughly. I think as you're listening to this, 2 weeks ago. And their guess was that the Blazers would put the away games on like KPTV or whatever on Fox locally, like over the air locally. And then the home games would still be on Root. So the Blazers would essentially buy back 41 of their broadcasts, assuming they get 2 nationally televised games next year. I believe they had 1 this season. Maybe they have 1 or 2 next year, but they'll have 80 games, and however many of them are road games, they would buy back those from Root Sports and broadcast those over the air, because the sort of the logic was that they want you in the arena. So they don't want it to be too easy to watch home games. They'd rather hey, they're at home. I can't watch them on TV. I might as well go, right? And they don't want to give up the gate. So this was a guess from someone familiar with the Blazers line of thinking. It was like, maybe we'll get 41 over-the-air games next season, or 40 or whatever it is, half the games over the air next season. And I thought that was a pretty reasonable guess. I didn't share it on the show because at the time it was like, hey, this might happen, but now it seems like it's going to happen. And part of the reason why it seems like it's going to happen is that Bill Oram of the Oregonian Blazers, the Oregonians sports columnist, wrote today about the relationship with Root Sports. It published maybe on Friday in Friday's paper, but I read it today in preparation for the show, and it was a story about Root Sports and Blazers relationship and Kraken and all these things, right? And in that, the Blazers president on the business side, Dwayne Hankins, is quoted on the record. And I'm going to go ahead and guess, and I know this, I know Dwayne a little bit, that he wouldn't give a quote on the record unless there was some momentum heading in this direction. The quote reads as follows: We're exploring all the opportunities for the evolving and rapidly changing landscape with a goal of making Blazer games available to the widest audience possible. That doesn't seem like someone who is going to stick it out with Root Sports in a bad situation for another season. And even just the willingness to go on the record, the willingness to put your name on it, the willingness to give a quote, even that quote's not super strong. Hey, Dwayne didn't come out and say Root Sports more like Toot Sports and poo-poo a business partner, right? But he didn't, he didn't decline to comment. He said they're working on it. That quote in many things is we're working on it, which is what reported by Danny Moran a couple weeks ago. But this is putting your face out there in the way the sort of the media game works. This suggests that the Blazers are further along down the line. So what does this mean for you? it means we're probably going to be able to watch games over the air. It means we're probably going to be able to watch games with a cable provider or with just an antenna if you're old school. Back in the day, this is like 15 years ago, I lived in an apartment and we couldn't afford cable and we had an antenna. And you know what we did? We watched whatever was on TV. And at the time, it was a lot of SEC football. We watched a lot of SEC football over the weekend because that was what was on. But what if what was on was the Blazer games and you could watch the Blazer game every night? There was a time in this fine city when the Blazer games were on local cable. There was even a time not too long ago when a good chunk, 30 of the games were on local cable. I think we're headed back there. If I had to guess where this is going based on the reporting from the Oregonian and from Danny Morang, and as well as the what has happened with the Kraken, I'm going to guess that the Blazers go full divorce from Root Sports. There's a chance that the person familiar with the Blazers line of thinking is 100% correct, and we get something like a split season. Half the games on Root, half the games locally, and the Blazers kind of slowly manage their divorce away from the Blazers. I think that is a very reasonable guess. But I would say based on what the Kraken did and based on the optics of that, I'm going to guess that the Blazers go full divorce. I don't know what the streaming option would be, whether it would be on Amazon or whatever. The NBA recently this week has struck a deal that some games will be broadcast on Amazon this year or in the coming season. So into the future, the games will be broadcast on Amazon. I don't think it's finalized for next season. Rather, I misspoke. But there is a world in which the Blazers are available in some sort of streaming package. There's a world when there's a Blazers.tv and the Blazers offer a direct subscription, direct to the consumer streaming option. But I think the most likely scenario is that a very large portion, if not all of them, are on over-the-air cable next year, and the Blazers move forward, divorced from Root Sports, trying to get the eyeballs back, trying to get you recommitted, and then eventually when they have a better basketball team, they move in another direction. I don't think regional sports networks are coming back. This thing's dead all over the world. Like, this is not a model that works by any means. It doesn't work for anyone, and I think that's just the cold, hard truth of it, is that it just doesn't seem to work. So the next inevitable step is upon us, and it might be upon us as quickly as the fall. It's going to be easier to watch Blazer games. It became too hard, both prohibitively expensive and just too many hoops to jump through. You either had to steal streams, or you had to, you had to get a cable package, or you had Fubo or a VPN or all these things. Too many things. If it's easier, even if they're bad, people will watch them. You know how I know that? I host a freaking Trailblazers podcast, and many of you, small thousands, typically every day, tune into this. If it's free and available on all platforms, just like this podcast, people will come watch it. The Blazers are going to follow the model set here by Locked On Blazers, and they're going to get more of you to tune into their games. And then hopefully still tune to the program, baby. All right. Is the super team dead? Somebody asked me that in a text message this week. I don't think so. Let me tell you why. Join me in that third segment. First, let's talk about DoorDash. You know DoorDash because they bring you food to your house. It's great. You go on the DoorDash app and you say, "Oh, nice. I'm going to get some food delivered to my home." But guess what? DoorDash also wants to help you deliver things to the homes of people you love, specifically your mother. You want to make your mom smile? Start Mother's Day with flowers or surprise her with gifts from brands she loves, delivered the very same day with DoorDash. This Mother's Day, get something thoughtful for your mom and send it to her with DoorDash, whatever that is. You can schedule ahead with DoorDash, or you can do it the same day. Like if you're thinking of it and say, okay, I'm going to make it happen same day. Or you're thinking of it, say the week, Mother's Day is May 12th. Say you're thinking of it that first week of May. You can schedule the delivery on DoorDash, hit go, pay for it, and the day of, a DoorDash driver will get it to your mother's home so you can be the wonderful son, whatever it is, daughter, husband, partner, whatever relationship you are to a mother or your mother, you can get it done and make her smile. And DoorDash is going to help you be appreciated. Get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place. Get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flour, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with Locked On NBA. That's a promo code Locked On NBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. A friend texted me this week, not the same friend, a totally different friend. In fact, someone that I've worked with in the past, and sent me a basketball question this week. It was a text message I got. Said, hey man, you think super teams are dead? It was during the game when the Phoenix Suns were getting thrashed. They are, as I am recording this right now, playing a basketball game, so I don't know if they're getting thrashed right out of there. In fact, they're up 1 with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter as I'm recording this on Sunday evening at about 9 p.m. And I said, I don't know. Do you think super teams are dead? And what he said, he doesn't listen to the program, so I'm not going to shout him out. And I'm not going to give him a euphemism either. He doesn't get it like a fake source disguise. This is just a friend. Said, yeah, I think super teams are dead. Like, look at the Lakers, look at the Suns. Like the Clippers are cooked. The Clippers came back and won today and tied the series up 2-2, but they didn't look good in games 2 or 3. So I understand the query. And then I saw online that this was being talked about other places. And then my friend was unoriginal. And I was like, yo, this was on Reddit, dude. I saw this. Here's what I think, and I think this relates to the Blazers a little bit. Super teams, like I think super team is like an amorphous term too, and people use it different ways. Like, I don't know why the T-Wolves wouldn't necessarily be considered a super team. They're a team that was built up, and then they cashed in all of their chips to bring in like a Hall of Fame level defensive player, 3-time defensive player of the year, and cashed in all of their chips to do so. And a veteran point guard along with him, although Mike Conley's a little bit older, right? And I understand why they're not. Anthony Edwards was drafted, Cat was drafted, so I'm kind of joking when I say that, right? But like, are the Lakers a super team? Or are they just like a team with 2 really expensive players? If super team means a team that was largely constructed by non-drafted players, either via free agency or via large trades in order to bring in 2 players that are making maximum level money or close to it, constructed from outside of the franchise, not grown organically, then like, I think the Lakers are that, but like, who's the Lakers' 3rd best player? Don't you have to have a 3rd best player that isn't Austin Reeves to be super? Does D'Angelo Russell make you super? Does Rui Hachimura make you super? I think the Clippers are a super team, right? MVP Russell Westbrook, MVP James Harden, complimenting freaking Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Yeah, I think that's like 4 Hall of Famers, right? All kind of brought in. Like they're a super team. Phoenix, I think, fits very, very cleanly fits into the description of super team. And when this text was sent, the Clippers hadn't tied the series up 2-2, and obviously the Suns might still get swept out of the playoffs, and the Lakers are going to get gentlemanly swept out of the playoffs probably, although they could conceivably make it all the way to Game 6. But like, I think what is true about team building is not that super teams will die, because super teams, like, how far back do we have to go to think about super teams, right? Like when Moses Malone joined the Sixers in the 80s, wasn't that a super team? Super teams worked when Kevin Garnett joined the Celtics in 2008. Super teams did not work when Kevin Garnett and the Paul Pierce ended up joining the Brooklyn Nets 5 years later, right? Like, sometimes it works. Sometimes it very clearly doesn't. The Warriors were not a super team. They were handmade until they got, or like, organically crafted until they got Kevin Durant. Then they became a super team. That was pretty effective. But is the era done? I don't think so. I think another team made from players from the outside that join up will eventually rise up, be really effective, and probably compete for, if not outright win titles. Just because the Celtics and the Denver Nuggets are favored to make the finals this year does not mean it's the death of the super team. What is the death of is poorly constructed teams. What the real truth about the Phoenix Suns is not that you can't build a super team, but if you build a bad one and then you don't give yourself any avenues to get better, you're probably stuck. You're probably in a bad spot. When the Suns had Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, they had a couple paths to take, right? They could have chosen a couple different directions to go with the sort of Chris Paul contract and those things. They chose Brad Beal, right? That was the direction that they decided made sense for them. And when they did that, and when they made the trades for Beal and made the trade, and made the trades for Kevin Durant, they ended up with no control over their draft picks until 2031. They'll get that when we hit the new league year next season. They'll have swaps, so they'll have some late first round picks coming up, and if they nail those, maybe they get themselves out of trouble. But they've got a couple second round picks and a pick in 7 years. It's tough to get better with that, and they're just not a big enough team and not a good enough defensive team. I don't even buy they need a point guard stuff. They need more size and more defense. To me, that's what they need: more options to play a bigger style of basketball. You need to get bigger. The freaking Mavericks got bigger, and look how much better they look when they can play big wing lineups out there. Are the Mavericks a super team? No. When they had one more player, are they a super team? If Daniel Gafford gets really good, are they a super team? No, they're not. The truth is, though, teams like the Lakers, and the Lakers will have some more picks to trade when we get to the summer, and teams like the Suns, who have kind of cashed in their chips in order to make swings that don't work, those teams get burnt out. And that style of roster building, cashing in all your chips to get to a B- level roster, that's never going to work. But a super team will still work. It's still a talent league. You just have to have players that complement each other, can play well next to each other, can flourish and be their best selves next to each other. If you get 3 dudes who cook in the mid-range and then they only play 41 games together during the regular season, you might not be that good. If your super team involves a 40-year-old, you might not be that good. But the Clippers, they look competitive. The Clippers might end up being one of the 4 teams in the best teams of the Western Conference. If they win, if they beat the Mavs, I think by virtue of being the Mavs, they will be one of the 4 best teams in the West. If you're one of the 4 best teams in the West this year, you're good. You're good, period. You're a good basketball team. It can't be the death of the super team. What is the death? It is the death of is not having avenues to continue to get better. And as the Blazers move forward, they are so far away from these playoff teams right now, just talent-wise. They're so far away. So even talking about this in any specific terms doesn't make sense. But broadly speaking, what they need to worry about as they build is that you can be, once you get to the level of truly one move away, or one move and a minor move away, right? When you get to that level, say the Blazers grow organically to that level, and then it's okay, well, we have draft picks to trade, and we got some young players to trade, and if you go all in, and you truly trade all of your future draft picks, and you end up with a couple second round picks and whatever, a draft pick way down the line, and it doesn't work, then you're stuck. You need to always have a couple outs unless you are truly championship level good, and then you cash in every single poker chip. But I think what the Suns have taught us, and to some extent what the Lakers over the last couple of years have taught us, is that if you cash in too early, if you trade for Russell Westbrook and break up a team that was totally fine with role players, even very good championship level good with role players, or if you are irresponsible in team building, it doesn't matter how deep pocketed your owner is, and doesn't matter how willing they are to spend, or doesn't matter how appealing the Lakers across your chest is, or how appealing, I guess, Los Angeles in general is if we throw the Clippers in there. And how a lot of the league is from there or lives there in the offseason. It doesn't matter. Being irresponsible, particularly when you're trying to take that good to great step, and that's the hardest step in the league, the good to great step, and not giving yourselves continued avenues to improve. That's holding on to young tradable players, or keeping your draft picks so you can draft good players, or you can trade those draft picks, but not being irresponsible with the minor assets, particularly in the new CBA era where it's going to be even harder, a climate that's going to be even harder and much more incentivized to add good players to your team and then sign them to contract extensions. That's the direction that the league, I guess, wants teams to go, is sort of aggressive retention as opposed to other avenues. If you're irresponsible in the good to great steps, you're going to be stuck in the good to mediocre for a long time, because you're going to have an expensive roster in a league where they punish you for having too expensive of a roster. And that's the truth. And as Blazers get closer to that, whenever that is, some seasons into the future, the being responsible in the good to great moment, like good to great navigation, really matters, because building a super team is still definitely the having a bunch of good players on the team is definitely the best way to win a championship. But not having ways to reconfigure once those players either don't work or they get hurt or whatever it might be, that's going to doom you. And I think that's the real truth of team building. Okay, that's going to do it for today's show. Super team's still live. It's still live, I promise. Okay. Come back for tomorrow's show. We're going to continue our player review series. Tomorrow's show is going to be a double looking at Malcolm Brogdon and Jeremy Grant. Come back for that one. I appreciate you listening. Oh yeah, tell your friends about the show too. Yeah, that's what I say here. Tell your friends about the podcast, free and available on all platforms and also on YouTube. Come back for tomorrow's show. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.